Oh, I don't have my mask on. Oh, it's all right.
Okay,
I don't
you
have
about
my
ready?
mask on.
I have my own.
I'm gonna get, is the car locked? I have to get my mask.
Oh,
Sorry, I forgot about my mask. Oh, thank you. Sorry.
Shana Tova once again, everybody. Glad you're back. And we're going to dive right into the service this evening on page 9 as we rise for the Baruch to call to prayer. La 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 We could be seated, and let's continue again on page 9, continue in the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher yidbaro ma'ariv ha'arim v'chochma poteach she'arim v'vituna mishanei itim u'machliv et zmanim u'misader et ha'kochavim v'mishmorotehem v'rakia kirsono v'rayom v'layla v'olel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or u'ma'avir yom u'vein layla u'ma'adil ben yom u'vein layla Adonai Tzevaot Shalom El Chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai u'ma'ariv ha'arim Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv ha'arim. Page 10 in the English together. You love your people Israel with an eternal love, giving us Torah and mitzvot, teaching us a way to live. Therefore, Adonai, our God, we will meditate on your instructions when we lie down and when we rise up. We will rejoice in the words of your Torah and your commandments forever and ever. For they are our lives, they give value to our days, and we will be engaged with them day and night. Through them we always have access to your love. Blessed are you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Kihem chayenu, v'orek yameinu, uvehem negeh yomam v'layla, v'al tasir yimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. On page 11, we come to the Shema, and let's sing together. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Together, V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, v'chol levacha, uv'chol nafshecha, uv'chol me'odecha, v'hayu ha'devarim ha'ele, asher anochi etzavcha hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivdecha v'vetecha, uv'lechtecha b'aderech, Uv'shorpecha uv'chumecha, uv'shartam leot v'yadecha, v'hayu v'totechot v'eninecha, uv'tartam amazizot v'yatecha, uv'shirecha. We continue silently through page 13. Adonai Elohim, amen. Page 14, the blessing after the Shema. Emet ve'emunah kol zot v'kayam aleinu ki hu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ein zulato ve'nachnu Yisrael amo. All this we regard as true and reliable, that we, Israel, are your people, that you, Adonai, are our God. There is nothing besides you. You saved us from the clutches of evil rulers. You are a ruler who redeemed us from tyrants. You avenged us on our oppressors and gave our mortal enemies what they deserved. Your deeds are amazing beyond what we can imagine and miraculous beyond what we can count. You maintain our souls in the realm of life and keep our legs from stumbling. You help us prevail over our enemies. Our light shines while theirs is dimmed. You made miracles for us when you avenged yourself on Pharaoh using signs and wonders in the land of Ham. You struck in your anger all the firstborn of Egypt, and you extracted your people Israel from there, bringing them to eternal freedom. You led your children between the divided waters and sank their pursuers and enemies in the depths of the sea. When your children saw this display of your power, they sang praises to your redeeming name, and they willingly accepted you as their ruler. Moses and Miriam and the children of Israel burst into songs of praise and joy to you, and shouted out all together, "Who is like you, Adonai, among those called gods? Who is like you, majestic in holiness? You are awesome, doing amazing deeds." Let's sing together the Mi Chamocha at the bottom of that page. Mi Chamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi Chamocha nedar v'kodesh, Norah Tehillah Oseh. Page 15. Malchut Harunecha Uken Yam Lifnei Moshe Zeli Anu V'Yamru Adonai Yimlo Le'olam Va'ed V'nemar Kifat Adonai Yaakov U'Ge'lo Miyad Chazak Mimenu Baruch atah Adonai God Yisrael. And on page 15, let's read together, starting with the second paragraph in the English. May you, Adonai, help us sleep in peace, and may you afterwards restore us to life. May you spread over us your sukkah of peace, and may your guidance enable us to grow. May you save us, because that is your essence. May you protect us and banish from us all enemies, plague, sword, hunger, and pain. May you remove all evil spirits from our path. May you protect us under the shadow of your wings. For you, Adonai, you watch over us and protect us, and you are our ruler who provides grace and mercy. May you guard our comings and goings for life and for peace, now and forever. May you spread over us your sukkah of shalom. Blessed are you, Adonai, who spreads your sukkah of peace over us, over your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Ufros aleinu sukkah shlomecha, Baruch atah Adonai, ha-boreh sukkah shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. Page 17. Tiku b'chodesh shofar, v'keseh leyom kagenu, ki chok Yisrael hu, mishpat le'Elohei Yaakov. Tiku b'chodesh shofar, v'keseh kese b'yom kagenu. Page 18, we have the Kaddish before the silent Amidah, and once again I want to say that when you stand for the silent Amidah, if the liturgy doesn't speak to you, then by all means think your own thoughts and your own prayers during that time. Yitkadah Shemei Rabbah, V'yamad Yivrat Yoroteh, V'yamlik Malchuteh, V'chayechon, U'vyomechon, U'chayei B'chol Beit Yisrael, B'gala, U'vizman Karim, B'imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorah, Le'olam Olameh Omayah. Yitbarach, V'yishtabach, Yitpa'ar V'yitrama V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar V'yitalev V'yitalav Shemei D'Kushav Riku, Le'ela Mikol Birchata V'shirata, Tush B'chata Menechamata, Damiyam Miran B'yama V'yimru, Amen. We stand for the silent Amidah, beginning on page 19 and ending on page 29. Shalom Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael. Page 75. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbi, v'yalmad divrach yirteh v'yamlik mafuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayedeho beit Yisrael, v'agalal v'izman kariv v'yimru, Amen. Yehesh shmei Rabba v'vara, le'olam v'olam le'amaya, Yitbarak v'yishtavak v'yitbar v'yitrama v'yitnaseh, Yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudusha brihu, le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechmata da'amiran b'yalma v'yimaru. Amen. Tikaval Solomon avalton d'chol beit Yisrael, Kadam avuhon di b'shmayel v'yimaru. Amen. Yehei shalom araba min shemaya v'chaim, Aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'yimaru. Amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, uyasei shalom. Aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael, v'yal kol yoshvei tevel v'yimaru. Amen. I wanted to speak just a little less formally this evening, but on a topic that's of great interest to me, and I know I've talked about it from this bima before. As you know, Rosh Hashanah traditionally is celebrated for 2 complete days. This is actually the beginning of the 2nd day right now. And many congregations will return tomorrow morning for a complete full service, Torah service, more shofar blowing, everything all over again. However, there's a different Torah portion. And I just wanted to briefly take the opportunity to talk about it because we don't read it here in the synagogue. The portion for the 2nd day of Rosh Hashanah that immediately follows this morning's reading, if you remember, it's about the birth of Isaac and Hagar and Ishmael being banished. But now we get to one of those morally difficult portions in the entire Torah known as the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. As a work of literature, I think it's worth taking a look at, even though we will not officially read from it from the actual scroll. In our portion this morning, we read that the birth of Isaac was this great miracle that happened in Sarah's old age, way beyond the time she should be having children, when her cycle was over. Isaac is Sarah's only biological child. Abraham, on the other hand, has also fathered Ishmael, the child of the handmaid that Sarah gave over to him for this purpose. We learn in the portion that though Ishmael will grow into a great nation, it's only Isaac who will be the heir of Abraham and therefore will be a patriarch of the Hebrew nation. Right after this narrative, we are told that Abraham makes a peace pact with Avimelech, the local Philistine ruler. Things seem all set for Isaac to grow up in peace, have a nice living, have a brilliant future, and that's where we leave off this morning. As you probably know, in the next paragraph, if you go on in the Torah, the story very suddenly and dramatically changes after this reassuring tale. It's all there starting, if you want to look sometime, on page 213 of the prayer books. We are told that God, quote, decided to test Abraham, unquote. This at least lets us, the readers and the listeners, in on the secret that whatever God is doing, it's only a test. But he doesn't tell Abraham it's only a test. Famously, God says to Abraham, take your son, your only one, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you of. Well, it's pretty strange. Abraham does not question this commandment. Furthermore, we don't know anything about Sarah's reaction to Isaac's being taken away from her, though one can safely assume she is not told why. It seems to be a long journey to Mount Moriah, but we hear nothing about Abraham's feelings on the way, let alone Isaac's. This is a completely astounding tale for a number of reasons. First of all, we know from later portions of the Torah, God regards child sacrifice as an abomination so awful it justifies the complete destruction of the Canaanite peoples who supposedly practiced it. It is supposed to be absolutely antithetical to what we would now call Jewish morality. Second of all, Abraham has had a long relationship with his God by this time. He's proven his loyalty over and over and over again. From the very beginning, when God tells him suddenly, leave your homeland, go to the land I'm going to tell you of, a place that Abraham does not know, doesn't know anybody there, but he goes. Why would Abraham need to be tested in any other manner, let alone child sacrifice? Third, Abraham was promised more than once that he would be the father of a great nation. Isaac is his only genuine heir, too young to have had children himself yet. Killing Isaac would also kill off this covenant God had made with Abraham. The great nation would never even come to be. Needless to say, Jews have struggled and struggled with this story over the centuries. Some picked up on what Abraham says to his servants at the foot of Mount Moriah when he gets there. Quote, "Stay here with the donkey. I and the boy will go up there and prostrate ourselves and return to you." Unquote. This, some say, points to the fact that Abraham already knows he will not really sacrifice his son. Abraham then loads the wood for the burnt offering on his son and takes his knife and the flint for the fire. And Isaac famously asks, "Here is the fire and the wood, but where is the sheep for the burnt offering?" Hey Dad, where's the sheep we're talking about? And Abraham replies, "God will see to his sheep for a burnt offering." Here again, this is taken by some as an indication that Abraham already knows the outcome, that God will provide a ram in the place of Isaac. I'm not convinced by this apology for the story. It seems to me that Abraham says to the servants that both he and Isaac will return, just so not to tell them this horrifying truth. Abraham tells his son there will be a sheep for an offering to keep him from knowing what's going to happen to him, just to be kind to the kid. Furthermore, if Abraham knows that he will not really sacrifice his son, where is the test? If he knows his son will not die, there just isn't a test. There is a midrash that Abraham accedes to this plan to sacrifice his son, but not really sacrifice his son, as almost a form of theater to show the world how loyal he is once and for all. Again, I don't buy it. It's a facile and it's a strange answer. Abraham requires no more proof of his loyalty so far as the world is concerned, and certainly does not require a bizarre show like this. As we know, when Abraham binds his son, places him on the altar, and raises his knife to strike him, an angel calls from the heavens suddenly, telling him that God knows how much he fears God. Famously and significantly for Rosh Hashanah, Abraham sees a ram caught in the thicket by his horns and offers the ram instead. And tradition, of course, ties the ram to the idea of the ram's horn. And later, the angel repeats God's promise to make of Abraham a great nation, as if that promise had never been made before. So the question remains, what do we modern people do with this story? I, for one, think that on a logical level, it just doesn't make any sense. It may just be a separate ancient tale told about Abraham that was woven into the rest of the tales about Abraham, even though it doesn't quite fit with them. We will never know for sure how it all started, unless we're fundamentalists and believe it comes from the mouth of God. So logically, it may make no sense, but psychologically, maybe the story does make a little sense. The philosopher Francis Bacon supposedly said that if you have children, you're giving hostages to fortune. I think that anyone who is a parent has at one time or another reflected on the fact that they are in effect raising a little human being to be sent off into a difficult and dangerous world. There is always the risk that the child will become some kind of sacrifice, at the very least meeting up with pain and sorrow, and thus sacrificing his or her innocence. As parents, we also know that the tribulations that our children could be subjected to are not the product of a reasonable, rational world story, because the world's demands are frequently neither reasonable nor rational. We wonder to ourselves, have we finally been tested? Have we succeeded in making the covenant that our kids will be okay now, that they will be open to the possibility that they will have kids themselves? Have we given to the world what it demands for us to become, as it were, a great nation of descendants? And if something goes wrong in the lives of our children, don't we often wonder, is this me? Is this my doing? Is this the product of my failure as a parent? Did I, in effect, without even knowing it, lift a sacrificial knife over my child by doing something whose ramifications I do not understand? It's also been pointed out that the Akedah reflects the deep anxiety the older generation has by being replaced by the younger generation, by no longer being relevant, and in effect dying a social death before our physical death. We of a certain age know that there are ways we are just not any longer taken as seriously as we once were, at least by those much younger than we are. So the Akedah could, on a very, very deep primitive level, be a projection of an old person's rage and having to be replaced by a young person, in this case his son. And no, that's not a nice thing to relate, but it is a truth about the dark side of the human psyche. And let's face it, many great stories are great precisely because they reveal dark truths. So in the end, then, we today are not responsible to either condemn or justify the story of the binding of Isaac. It's an ancient tale. We cannot know what its original creators were thinking. Maybe they simply wanted a lot of drama to tell. Maybe they did not know of the other stories about Abraham's other covenants with God. Maybe they lived in a world in which it was not so strange to hear about a God demanding the sacrifice of a child. But whatever you think, I do recommend you take another look at the story of the Akedah. If nothing else, it represents an important strand of Jewish tradition that is woven into the high holidays. The shofar will forever be associated with the horns of the ram caught in the thicket. Sometimes, as Jews, we ourselves are caught in the thicket of difficult stories to deal with. But that, after all, is what Judaism is about and what life itself is all about. So we go on to the conclusion of our service. On page 77, we rise for the Aleinu. Page 77. Aleinu shalech gadol hachol, latei fidulav yoser breishi, shelo asan goyei haratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam helkeinu kahen, v'gor ameinu v'kol ha'amunah. Next page. V'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch shehu noteh shamayim v'yoseh haaretz u'moshav yikaro b'shamayim mima'al u'shchina tuzo B'kol Meronim, Hu Eloheinu Eino, Emes Malkeinu Et Mesuato, Kakatu B'Torato, V'dat Hayom, V'hashevota Elevavecha, Ki Adonai Hu Elohim, B'shamayim b'ma'al, v'ya'aretz mitachat eino. page 79. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai l'melech al kol haaretz Bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad U'shemo We can be seated. On page 80, we've reached the mourner's Kaddish. Those whose custom it is to rise, who are in mourning or yahrzeit or are rising for a friend perhaps, let's rise now to recite the Kaddish. Yit gadal, yit gadash shemei Rabbi. V'alma divra pirtei, v'alnich malchutei. V'chayechon, u'v'yomechon, u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'bizman kari v'imru. Amen. Yehei shemei Rabbi mevarach le'olam v'almei omayah. Yitbarach, yishtabach, yitba'ar, yitromam, yitnaseh. Yithadar, Yidaleh, Yithalal, Shmei Kusha, Riku, Le'ela, Le'ela, Inko Birchata, Shirata, Tushkata, V'nechamata, Da'amiram Be'alma B'imru, Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chaim, Aleinu, Be'alko Yisrael, B'imru, Amen. Oseh Shalom B'runa, Uyaseh Shalom. Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. We can be seated, and before we get to our concluding song, we have Psalm on page 81, Psalm 27, a psalm that is recited at this time of the year, the penitential days. And let's, as we did last night, read these paragraphs responsively. A psalm of David. Adonai is my light and my help. Whom shall I fear? Adonai is the strength of my life. Of what should I be afraid? I do have foes, external and internal, who could potentially devour me. I do have troublesome enemies, but I know that they will fall. Even when I am surrounded, my heart will not succumb to fear. Though wars rage all around me and within me, I know that you are with me.
Only one thing have I asked of Adonai. One thing I truly desire, to dwell in the house of God all the days of my life, to feel the presence of Adonai, the sweetness of your embrace.
You cover me with your sukkah during terrible times. You hide me in your tent. You raise me up on a rock out of reach of disaster.
Now my head is raised high above all the enemies that surround me. So I bring you my offerings, my shouts of joy. I offer my voice and my music to you, Adonai.
You, Adonai, you hear my voice when I call. You answer me and are gracious to me.
My heart tells me, turn to God's face. It is your face, your presence that I seek.
You will not hide your face from me. You will not reject your servant. You have always been my help. You will not abandon me or desert me. You, God, are my deliverer. Though my father and mother will lead me, you will always gather me in. Teach me your way, Adonai. Guide me to walk straight on your path, despite all the turmoil around and within me.
You will not abandon me to my foes, to those who intend to betray me and destroy me.
That might happen if I weren't sure of seeing your goodness in the land of the living. Put your hope in Adonai, and strengthen and fortify your heart when you hope in Adonai. And we conclude with Yigdal on page 83. Yigdal Elohim Chai v'yishtabach nimsa v'enet el siuto et had ben yachid k'yihudo ve'lam v'lam ein sof v'haftuto ein lo demut ha'guf ve'ein lo guf lo nacharok elav asher nibra, Rishon ben Reshit l'Reshito, Hino Adon Olam, v'chol notzar, Yoreh gedulato, u'malchuto, Shefad nevuato netano, El anshe segulato v'tifarto, Lo kam b'Yisrael, K'moshe od, Navi u'mavi, et emunato, Torah et natan, le'amoel, ayad l'ilion ne'eman beto, lo yachalifa el, ve'lo yamir dato, le'olamim zizulato, sofer v'yodea sitarenu, marbi l'sof davar b'kadmato. Gomer li'ish chesed gelifalo, noten l'rashara gerishato, Ishlach l'keshani meshivenu, Livdok mechakeket yeshuato, Metim yichayedel v'roch hasto, Baruch Adei Shem Tehilato, Metim yichayedel v'roch hasto, Baruch Adei Shem Tehilato. Shana Tova V'Tikatevu to everyone, and hope to see you here on Yom Kippur, 10 days from now.
Very nice. You made it down at one seat.
Oh, there's nothing for me. It's fun. People bed me and hair me. I didn't have to do anything. It was a vacation.
I feel like apparently everything that went in high school went out because I don't remember. I literally had,
Semi-terrible.
Chumash class.
Just
and Tanakh.